Slight technical difficulty there.
All right, commissioners, you are live.
Yay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Moffitt, and I would like to welcome everyone to the meeting of the Asheville Downtown Commission for February 11th, 2022. The Asheville Downtown Commission was created by the City Council for the sustainability and continued development of downtown, a vital urban center of Western North Carolina's economic, cultural, and visitor activity. The Downtown Commission provides City Council with recommendations on downtown policies and initiatives. In addition, Downtown Commissioners currently fill 4 out of 9 seats of the city's Design Review Committee, which reviews development projects within the Central Business District, the River Arts District, and hotel projects outside of those areas. The Downtown Commission also has the opportunity to provide input on projects outside of the scope of design review. All committee members and staff are participating virtually for at least one more meeting. We appreciate your patience as we work through our committee meetings differently. We are streaming live at our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. We have an option for the public to listen live by phone. For anyone joining us out there today, welcome. At this time, I will go through and do a roll call and introduce the committee members. Committee members, you know the drill. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you are not speaking. If you have a question or would like to speak, unmute and raise your hand, or just speak. We can accommodate either. Committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Commissioner Andrew Fletcher, happy birthday.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. And new Commissioner Tal Frankfurt, I believe I said that right, birthday tomorrow, right?
That's correct. Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner Kimberly Hunter.
Birthday in 2 weeks. Good morning.
Nice. This is just, we should have a party. Commissioner Stephen Lee Johnson.
My birthday is in 6 months and 9 days.
Commissioner Robin Raines.
I'm here.
Tell us.
It's a long time. It's no point. I'm here.
Commissioner Megan Rogers.
Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner Guillo Rodriguez.
Buenos dias, guys.
Commissioner, second meeting, I think, for him, Ricardo Sayo.
Buenos dias.
Did I
Hi,
say
guys.
your name right? Am I doing names right?
Pretty good. Yeah. Sejo. Ricardo Sejo. Yeah.
Sejo. I'll practice. Commissioner Ruth Summers, Vice Chair.
My birthday's in March.
Happy birthday, a little early. And our City Council Liaison, Sage Turner.
Good morning, everyone. And birthdays in October, far away.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you. So we will, our first item is our approval of minutes. Again, we're doing draft action minutes from our January 14th meeting. The full meeting minutes are considered to be the recording of our meeting. So we have draft action minutes. First, are there any revisions or additions to the draft action meeting minutes? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes. Summers.
All right, I'm going to give Ruth the motion and Guillo the second. Is that okay, Guillo? Very good. So we will go through a roll call vote for approval. Andrew?
Aye.
Thank you. Tal?
I wasn't there.
Yeah, you still get to vote, though. There you go. Kimmy?
Aye.
Thank you. Stephen Lee?
Aye.
I am an aye. Robin?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Guillo?
Aye.
Ricardo?
Aye.
Ruth?
Aye.
And Sage?
Aye.
All right, the motion passed. So this morning, we will go through our new business and presentations, which will include a project overview for the Pack Square improvements. We will do a project development impact review for 72 Broadway. We will discuss, hopefully, well, we'll talk about it when we get there, the city's proposal for board restructuring for advisory boards. We need to have officer elections. And just as an update on that, so even if you guys kick me out, I'm going to help the meeting along through the end of today, and then the new chair will take over next month. We will have updates and reports from the Design Review Committee, the Asheville Downtown Association, Public Space Management, a downtown update. And then we have some informal discussion, future agenda items on the downtown parks, South Side Vision Plan, and our homeless response. So that's what we're planning on going through today. Do we have any public comment, written comments or voicemails that were provided to us ahead of time? I'm not aware of any.
We had no public comments ahead of time, and we do not have anyone currently in the queue.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, well, then we will move right on into Pack Square Improvements Project Overview. And is that Steph who's doing that?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks to everyone for giving me your time this morning. We are going to talk a bit. You have a lot on your agenda, by the way, so bravo for everything that you're getting into. We're going to talk a little bit about what this project, the Pack Square Improvement Projects, is. And I'm hoping what I can do is start a relationship with you where you start thinking about how you can be involved, both as downtown commission members, but also via your other roles with organizations or the work that you do in community. So we have a request for proposals on the street right now. It was issued on January 18th. As of yesterday, we issued our second addendum, and with that addendum, we extended the time to apply to become the project manager for Pack Square Improvements. So the first thing that I want you to know is that there's an opportunity for you or whomever else to actually submit a proposal for this project, and they are due on Monday, February 21st at 5 p.m. So what would somebody be applying for? Well, we're looking for an excellent project manager that can help us work with diverse communities across Buncombe County. Pause. This is a city-county-led project, not just a city-led project. And really come up with something that we're considering almost a consensus document that would serve as a foundation for us to make a series of improvements in and around Pack Square moving forward. So if you think about Pack Square, and most of you know, but I'll backtrack if it helps with the background here. This project was obviously instigated by the Vance Monument Task Force recommendation to the city and the county to remove the Vance Monument, and with the which is city property and part of the city's public art collection. And with that, basically a de-accessioning of the monument and removal. There's a lot of conversation in the community about what next. What the project that we're proposing does is it seeks to answer the question about what's next for that small 900 square foot area, but it also seeks to get the community to have a larger conversation about the purpose of monuments and memorials in our community, in our landscape across Buncombe County, and to specifically think about the heart of our downtown and what it is saying to community and how it is performing and acting as a public space and how it should be acting as a public space moving forward. So thinking beyond just that monument, right? So I'll give you an example of an issue we have with inclusivity right now. There is a small, wonderful lawn area that sometimes people like to climb up on and have lunch. And it's got these beautiful river birches that are actually in pretty poor shape right now. So that's a conversation. But it's not accessible to people who have strollers, wheelchairs, or mobility issues. You need to walk up some stairs, no matter on which side you approach it from, in order to get to it. So there's a lot of things that we can be thinking about beyond even monuments and memorial in this area. Reining this back in, We want to get a project manager that can help us organize those thoughts and make sure that certain questions are answered. You all are probably familiar with the, I hope you are, some of you are very new, the Haywood and Page visioning process, and then the Haywood and Page master concept planning process that we've held over the past 5 years. So to give you an idea of the level of information that we want to walk out the door at the end of the day with like a deliverable, we want something that is more than what we got out of the Haywood and Page visioning process. We want something a little bit less than what we got with the Haywood and Page master concept planning process. Our budget for this right now is about $115,000. And actually that aligns very well with the statement I just made as far as what we spent on the Haywood and Page visioning versus what we spent on actually concept planning. We do not have any funds set aside for capital projects in the future. And we think that it's important for us to go through this process first to really understand what the scope of any capital improvements might be. Those capital improvements will include public art and memorials, perhaps, maybe they won't. And they could also include changes to our public space, sidewalk, seating arrangements, places where people can use for festivals, that type of thing. Maybe they won't. This is where the project manager comes in. So project manager, working 6 to 9 months. That is what our original goal was after speaking to community. As you know, real community engagement takes longer than we ever think, but it would be great to get some milestones accomplished by the end of this year when people will start to have an idea of how Pack Square can be transformed to be a more equitable and inclusive place. Few things I want to mention. We're already working with Friends of Buncombe County Special Collection to create what I would, I should just say, what they will call a new narrative for Pack Square. So this includes creating a timeline and a whole bank of resources that we as a community can use as basically like a vocabulary and a starter kit for tools about thinking about the real history of Pack Square, which is rich, deep, and unknown to most. So we're working with them. There's models that used to be at the old art museum. Those models are going to be redone as a part of this project. So right there, hopefully that's maybe stirring some interest in you about like, how can I get involved with some of this? The Public Art and Cultural Commission has already started work on this at their retreat a couple Fridays ago. We brought in Dr. Fox, who you probably know from the MLK Association and his work with the EGI initiative. We brought in some other folks, academics from Warren Wilson College and North Carolina State University to talk about monuments and memorials and ask them a lot of questions. It was a great discussion. If you're really interested in that aspect of it, I would point you to the recording that is available, of course, on the City of Asheville's YouTube site, and ask you to take a look at that session. Before we had conversations with them, we also heard from our new public art specialist. She's an urban designer named Carly Stevenson that works with myself and Dana and David in planning and urban design. She is helping us create a temporary public art program that we hope to release in mid-March, maybe by April, where we can get individuals and organizations across, again, hopefully Buncombe County, but beyond that, potentially, because we are talking about unceded Cherokee territory here. And so we want to bring in members of our Eastern Band and other folks who have connections to this area to really use arts and history as a medium for us to explore what Pack Square can be in the future. So that's a big thing moving forward as well. And then I can answer any questions, but I know you have limited time and I'm taking up a lot of it. The question I have for you is, how can you help make this project better? How can you connect the city and the county to individuals and organizations that can add value to this process on the front end? We don't even have a project manager yet, but we think it's important to go out and start talking to people now. So we've already, for instance, been talking to all of the adjacent property owners in the area and asking them the same question that I'm asking you. What is it that you think that you might want to do? How would you like to participate? Who needs to be at the table? And you can run that by Dana, or you can just email me directly. Most of you have my email. And I thank you so much for all the work that you've done up to this point to help us consider these really important issues about public space and about monuments and memorials.
Any questions or comments regarding this issue? Go ahead, Andrew.
Hey, good morning, Steph. Thanks for the update here. It's really nice to see this project coming along. My fellow commissioners, I sat in on that Public Art and Cultural Commission meeting because I serve there as well, and that was really informative. So if you do want to take the deep dive, that was that portion of the agenda for that day was really interesting. And I really appreciate the processes you laid out here, saying like, here's the scope, and so being clear about where the jump off is, what the ingredients of success will be, but not defining what that success will be particularly, leaving it open and community oriented. I think that's a lot of what, and my experience with Haywood Page Task Force tells me that was a winning route, and it's defining the deliverable is in between those 2 points, which I'm really familiar with. And if anyone is curious about how that process worked, I was very involved in that. And so feel free to ask me about that. It might take more than a single cup of coffee to get into, but that was a winning process, and being able to define the deliverable like that, I think, is really helpful for me to imagine what types of resources are going to be required to get there. So thank you very much.
Go ahead, Stephen Lee.
2 things. I'd like to thank staff for the way that they are approaching this project. I think that for citizens of Asheville, this demonstrates a huge commitment on the part of the city to take this in a direction that this is how a public space would be dealt with in a city like Washington or Boston. And this space deserves this approach and this commitment to finding the right project manager. And so the second part is that all of us know planners. We know experienced people that either live in our community now or are interested in moving here. And I challenge each of us, including myself, to reach out to people that we feel like might play a good part in the project or applying for the position for project manager. Thanks.
Chair, if I may, since Stephen Lee gave me that opening, you can go to asheville.nc.gov/bids to find this RFP for anyone who's watching or any of you on the commission.
That's good. That's very good. So if they come online sometime, the bids are due February 21st. I'm assuming you'll make a selection sometime in March, probably. And then the process will probably start then, maybe April. Is that what you're?
Yeah, we'll have the process will start with internal planning. So we're looking to that project manager to work with a variety of members of staff from the city, the county, and several community members to actually create that scope of work. So that will take another 30 days, and we won't start real community engagement until that work has been done. So we're not even planning to get out of the gate till I would say May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except for that temporary public art program.
Got it. Gail, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Has any thought been given to, you talked about Haywood Page, and I was a volunteer during that project, and I thought it went fairly well. And I just wondered if the Design Center was asked to help in this project at all.
So we have outreach to them, the opportunity for this RFP, and we meet with Chris Joyelle monthly to provide updates on this and other projects. I fully anticipate that the Design Center will be at the table when we decide what that process is. Yes.
Very good. if there are no other questions or comments, I mean, I plan to be involved just as a community member. And like Stephen Lee said, we probably all know folks who would be a good fit for at least some of this, different pieces. So please remain involved and looking forward to see what you do with it. Okay. Thank you. Very good. We'll move on if that's all right. I think the next item of business would be the project development impact review for 72 Broadway. I don't know if that's Will or Shannon.
That's me. And let me get my screen going. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, good morning, everybody. So this is a development impact review for the property located at 72 Broadway. Some of the commissioners may recall that we had a previous application a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, that included these parcels, but was actually a larger application and included more property than is in this application. So that plan has been scaled back to be a smaller project with less property. The old project actually bridged or was a through lot and had property or frontage on both Broadway as well as North Lexington. But that, again, the project's been reduced in scope and scale, and it doesn't include all those properties and no longer has that frontage. Sorry, I said North Lexington. I think that's Market. So anyway, we just have frontage on Broadway now. The property is about 100 feet of frontage on Broadway Street, which is a key pedestrian street in our downtown. I don't have a site plan yet, but you can see this is the property or the proposed project pretty much goes out to the property boundaries. So this ground level floor plan pretty much indicates that site plan. So you can see the primary entrances located on Broadway. It is a 9-story building, just under 100,000 square feet and under 100 feet tall. So it is reviewed as a level 2. So it's 9 stories with 2 of those stories, the first 2 being parking. So you can see on that ground level, there's that, you can see some of that parking structure showing up. There's an additional level of parking below grade, and all of this parking is accessed via a public right-of-way that comes in from the south on the edge of the building. So that preserves the frontage on Broadway for pedestrian use, and we don't have those interruptions any longer. So let me kind of scroll down. So here is a elevation of the building. They are still in development, so this could change a little bit. This project has been to the design review committee once informally. It's going to return to the design review committee again next week informally. So the architect's taking advantage of the committee as a resource to try to help improve. You can see from a design standpoint that it has this sort of base middle cap organization. The street wall height is established at the 4th floor here, and the building does step back, which becomes more apparent in some of the perspective drawings that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. And then you can see that there's some non-residential or some commercial space at the ground level. The mix of uses, it's a mixed use building. You've got a little bit of that retail at the ground level, about 2,000 square feet. And there are 22 extended stay hotel units and 18 condominiums. So it's kind of a mixed residential kind of project with that little bit of ground level retail. So just to kind of swing around the building, you can see some of the other elevations and the use of balconies. And another of the side elevations. This is the south side where you have the parking garage entrance here. And then here, I think the perspective does a good job of showing that step back. So you can see that principal entrance there. There are a couple other secondary entrances, I think, into those retail spaces. And you can see the use of some balconies. This is your step back area at the street wall height. And you can kind of see it's a sort of an L-shaped building. Another perspective showing the entrance into the parking garage that would come from the alley. And another perspective of Broadway Street, front elevation, and then the long side elevation. This is the side that would be adjacent to the Masonic Lodge property. Or I think there's a parcel in between the Masonic Lodge and this property. So I'd be happy to go back to any of those perspective drawings or elevations if the commission would like me to, but when we look at these projects, we look at them from a development impact standpoint, so not just from design, but in looking at the overall design, our preliminary review is that it does largely comply not just with the UDO standards, but with the design guidelines. It does, let me just scroll back a couple things just to highlight from a design standpoint. Actually, let me go back to the elevation. So the couple of the guidelines that are a little bit, they almost conflict themselves a little bit when we talk about base middle cap organization. There is a guideline that suggests that you should establish your base at the street wall, which would be the 4th level here. And I think the applicant has done sort of a nice job of establishing the base at that ground level, or just the first 2 stories, with the street wall step back being a part of that middle section. It also talks about taking cues from some of the other buildings in the area, particularly if they're historic buildings. Obviously, this building is going to be a more modern design that doesn't necessarily mesh with the Masonic Lodge as one of those historic buildings, but it does take some architectural cues from some of the other buildings, particularly across the street. You can see the Center for Craft here, and just sort of the size and organization of some of the windows in some of these other historic buildings. So it does achieve that to some degree. So as with a lot of our design guidelines, there's a little interpretation of how well a project meets those guidelines or not. Some other things to point out is from a multimodal or supporting multimodal transportation goal or standpoint, this project is providing some off-street parking, which is required for the hotel use. It's not required for the other uses. But one thing that we particularly like about this project is that it takes the entrance to that parking off the alley, as opposed to trying to create a new curb cut on the front of the building. That was included in one of the earlier iterations of this, and staff quickly said, you've got this alley, why can't you use the alley? And the applicant was very open to that initially, and so they kind of redesigned it so that was possible. And it does provide a mix of uses, which is another goal that we like to see. We like to see a balance of uses. This property is located in the hotel overlay, so it is one of those areas or properties that we did early identify in that master planning process to be suitable for a hotel. And it's not just a hotel. So it's a hotel with residential units and that little bit of retail to kind of help activate the ground level. So we think that that's a reasonable balance of uses as well. So those are just a few that I wanted to highlight. I'd be happy to go over anything else or answer any questions for the commission, but otherwise I'd just like to hear your feedback.
A quick question. Can you go to one of the 3D views? So I'm looking at this and I'm just struggling to figure out what's going on, because I thought they were not right up. But yeah, so that one, it looks like it's the left side is dead up against the temple, but I thought they were leaving, they didn't own that, and that was the parking lot.
It is. So oops, sorry, let me go back to that. So I believe this parking lot here belongs to the temple.
That's what I thought
So
too.
there is a void there, but I think
Okay.
perhaps that study is contemplating that might get filled in someday.
Okay.
Now
Okay,
they are taking away this parking, which is part of their
Right.
project. And that is we did receive some comments from members of the community about the loss of this parking. But of course, this is a level 2, and from a technical standpoint, we can't make a project keep parking. They are providing parking, but we anticipate that those, I think it's 43 or 46 parking spaces, are really going to be just for the exclusive use of their project. They're not supplying additional public parking.
Okay. Okay. Say, Jesse, your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't realize this one was going to be at level 2. And I did hear that it will go back to the design board, which is great. I think you all that are on the design board have been doing a wonderful job. I commend you on that. And I hope that you will do similarly to this one as you did the Avery, because I'm looking at this and it reminds me of the Cambria. And if this is what our design guidelines are producing and allowing, please write us at council about updating the design guidelines, because this kind of stuff, no offense, Peter at MHA. I mean, Peter's a wonderful architect and his crew, but I do not like this design. I hope I'm disappointed. And I know this is about impacts, but design board, please tackle this a little bit. Help us. I'm disappointed. That's all.
Tal?
Yeah, I want to second that. It's just, it looks very different from the rest of the buildings around it. So I also think that it's a little disappointing to see that specific design and also to lose the parking spots. So I get that we can't force them to have these extra parking spots, but it's as someone using that area, I think it's a loss to downtown.
Kimmy, I think you're next.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I remember the original review, and it was exciting. The design was beautiful, and this is totally different, and I can't get that original design out of my head. I know we're not reviewing that. I get it. It just is a really stark contrast. And so I'm excited that they're coming to DRC, and we can support them in maybe shaping up this project. Thank you.
Very good. I think it's Andrew and then Gio.
Yeah, first off, I just want to note that the drawings submitted by the applicant, it kind of make it difficult to really place the building in its context very well. The past couple of years, I've noticed that some of the applicants have brought in some really, really good development packets, and where you can really imagine that building in that space, and it really helps the review. I think probably not just for the commission and the design review and planning and zoning, but probably for staff too, to assess, what's more going on. But this is a black and white perspective that doesn't seem to even the boxes around the building, like what you mentioned about the Masonic temple. It's kind of hard to imagine how that's going to fit there and together. So it makes it more difficult to review, which makes me more skeptical of the project and less confident of like what we see is what we get ? The other thing is that I really see that this is not as compelling as a project as the one that replaced it, as the one that's replacing. When we first saw this thing, this was for some context, this was the hotel after the Flatiron project and before the moratorium. So this bridged that little gap there, and it was the only hotel project that was unanimously voted down, and it was probably the best one that had ever been proposed to council. While I'm not known to be a fan of hotels, I know that the intent of the moratorium was stated to be sort of, well, what if we had fewer but better hotels? And here we are on the other side of the moratorium, new hotel rules in place, and we have more hotels and they're worse. And so I'm not really sure I'm not really sure what we got out of this in this case. And so I've, as far as the greater process that's above this, that's kind of above the staff level, I think, I don't think we're getting what we want. And I think this hotel is a real prime example of how we didn't land in the place that we needed to land with in our relationship with this extremely powerful industry that's eating up almost every piece of available property in our downtown. And this is a lesser quality building than the one there's no mention of public art on this. That was a big part of the application the first time around. And I just don't see how we've gotten the community to a better place.
I should have mentioned that there had been some discussion about still kind of maintaining that art theme that was included in the original project at the informal review, but we just don't have any detail about what that means exactly. So I didn't highlight it. Similarly, MHA is well known for adding green roofs and things of that nature to their projects. But again, we just don't quite have that much detail yet. Perhaps we will by the next meeting. And this may be a case where it might be worth coming back to Downtown Commission after the design gets a little further along.
Yeah, in that case, I'm going to second what Sage has said, which is, hey, design review folks, chalk up. Because this project needs your help.
Yeah, and I just wanted to echo some of what Andrew was saying. This project actually was the same night as the moratorium. It was the vote right before the moratorium. And it was, frankly, I mean, he's right. This was the best hotel project we had. And some of the details, if we're going to talk about impact, was that it included, if I recall, 150 hotel rooms, 30 condominiums, 10 affordable apartments, and it was going to be local art, retail, and commercial space. There was an alley of local art. I mean, it was frankly everything we thought that the moratorium might get us to. So the irony that this is back and this is what we're getting is very unfortunate. And I know part of it is probably, for those of you who understand, so, we have people that sell land to hoteliers, we have developers of hoteliers, but they always have an operator. So for instance, McKibben developed the Heiress. The Heiress is the operator. The one down in the historic YMI area is the Foundry, but it's an operator of Marriott. Like, there are things, and the operator that had originally proposed to be in this is now the one doing the hotel next to a loft. So perhaps there was a parting of ways, and that's how we ended up with this, but it was certainly better before. And for impacts, we lose the alley, we lose the housing, we lose the affordability, we lose the local retail space.
But we do have public benefits. This is a level 2 that is bypassing council review. So the part of the purpose of the new hotel regulations was to give that option and to bake in public benefits. So really there will be
poor design, then, is what we're getting at. So some of the benefits are better. They may not be everything we wanted, but design is still problematic. We need guidelines.
I also want to be careful. I think I might need to push back just a little bit on the statement that we're getting more and worse hotels. Worse is subjective. I'm not going to try to respond to that, but more, I don't think that that's the case. Pre-pandemic, we had a lot of hotel applications with a lot of rooms being, the result. We have had a number of hotels come in since post-moratorium or since the adoption of these regulations, but they tend to be smaller with fewer rooms. Like, we're getting applications that have 20 rooms, 22 rooms, 18 rooms, not very many. Like, I think the Aloft, the Moxie Hotel next to the Aloft is the largest that we've seen come through so far. Except for 22 Woodfin. That one was larger. That was a bigger project, but that was a really large project overall. And they only added, I think, 50 hotel rooms, where the Moxie is, I think, somewhere around 100. But all of the other applications have been like less than 30 in the 20s or the teens. So I don't think I think in terms of I think the hotel regulations have been successful in that they have pushed the hotels into the areas where we had determined through that zoning planning process to establish the hotel overlays. And we have large and small districts, and this is in a small district. So it helps to ensure that the hotel use doesn't become the overwhelming use on the corridor or on the street. So, you're not going to get more than 30 some rooms in any of these projects. So I just wanted to point that out, particularly since we have some newer commissioners, so they kind of have a little bit of background on that study.
We've got 3 hands raised, and then we're going to start to wrap up the discussion. So if you want to say something, go ahead and raise your hand so you can get in the queue, because we've got a lot to cover today. I see you, Gia. Yeah, I got you. Hold on. One quick thing, Shannon, please make sure for our design review that they provide some streetscape stuff, because I'm a little lost as to what's going on. And I say that as someone who looks at a lot of these applications.
What streetscape stuff are you referring to?
I need to know what the buildings beside it look like. Actually.
Okay, so you want the perspective.
Yes, it doesn't have to even be a perspective, just a streetscape like we do in HRC and a lot of other things. I need to know what's going on to put this building in context a bit. And then, so we've talked about parking, multimodal. We've talked a little bit about economic development, livability, urban design, balance of uses, public safety. And I agree, Shannon, this would probably be a good one to bring back. I will say MHA has has responded really well to design review. And I suspect they will do similar here. Hope so. But that would be my expectation. So I'll just leave that there. And yes, we are going to be ready. Gio, you're up. Except you're muted. Still can't hear you, Gio. When he comes back, we can type it in the chat. Stephen Lee?
Thanks. I know that the applicant is either watching this or is going to see what the results are of this meeting, but I don't see any changes in this, and that may be intentional, but any changes from what the Design Review Committee saw in their first presentation. So this is just a message from me to them. This thing is dead in its tracks, like if it's submitted like this. And I would suggest that there be a major regroup on this, given what we're hearing now and the Design Review Committee members. If this thing passed, folks, the DRC would be like eviscerated. And the architecture firm has got to realize that. And I'm not going to name names, but there's the hotel that was mentioned earlier that is near the Grove Arcade is an absolute horrible eyesore downtown. And this is looking just like it in this form. I know the materials may be different, but this is just not going to float. And at this stage, they need to be pressing what these public benefits are. And I don't see anything present right now to demonstrate that. Maybe they're there. Maybe we'll hear about it in design review, but in its current fashion, it's not going to move one step forward in design.
I did reach out to the applicant earlier this week asking them, because I had noticed that we hadn't received any updated materials, and design review is scheduled for next week. And I have not gotten a response back. I'm not sure what that means. It may be that this is premature. Our customary practice is to do the informal review, have the development impact discussion, do the formal review, and then, move on through the process. I think they are perhaps not far enough along in the design development stage with this project.
And that is important to note, because I know Andrew had some concerns with that too, but this group is very good at presenting very conceptual and then taking us along. And then as it gets more developed, presenting very, very clear aerial images, perspective images. And we're looking at these forms right now, but the forms aren't working and the program is not working. And those are two hurdles to really overcome. Thanks.
Okay, I think Ruth is next, and then Gio will circle back to you, okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention two things. I was against the Moxie presentation when it was first done. I just felt like, they were adding things just so that it would look good to the design review committee, like the wall of art. It really wasn't what I would call a significant piece of artwork. But the thing that bothers me the most about this new plan, even though we can't see the street view and how it fits within the Masonic Temple, to me, this is one of the most significant streets architecturally that Asheville has. And I just don't think this project fits in architecturally. It's oversized next to the Masonic Temple. I don't know what the finishes were going to be, but the Moxie Hotel was going to be white, pink, and gray. And I just feel like, I had so many hopes for this new hotel process that we were going to go through, that architecturally we would come up with that developers would come up with some great design. And I just don't think we're there. To me, it's just plopped in an empty space. And I just hope that MHA comes back to us with a better proposal.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if it works. Can you hear me? Okay, good. All right, I hope you guys can hear me because I keep having network interruptions.
You're good. I spoke too soon. We'll get him back, and if we have to, he can text me and I'll read his comments. Gio, if you're back.
Hello, I'm here.
Yeah, go fast.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to go real fast. I was sitting on the Planning and Zoning Commission when we first reviewed this, the first proposal. I agree with all the comments that have been made so far. That was an exciting project. That connected two streets. It had a diverse amount of uses. It had some really interesting spaces going through the building. Now we have this project. I think we need to review it on its own merits. I agree with all of the comments that have been made so far. This is a disappointment, but that's what we've got right now. And one of the things specifically, Shannon, there, if you can help me, is like, what kind of improvements will be made to the public access? Because that kind of back alley is a mess. I just wondered, have they proposed anything there?
They are talking to the other property owners who use that alley. So even if it's a publicly dedicated alley, it's still privately maintained and managed. And so that's the case here. So they just have to work with all of the other property owners about how to kind of clean up the use of that alley. There is some unpermitted parking that occurs in that alley that encroaches, which I think is creating some challenges with sort of clear access through. But that we leave that up to the applicant to sort out. They're going to have to secure a 20-foot clear path to that parking garage in order to meet fire department access standards. So that is an assumption that we have at this case, that at this stage. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to use that alley.
And the other, it's an informal connection that we all use to get through from Market over. We've all kind of gone through that whole space. So I just think that's an opportunity for us to create, if this project goes forward, is to create a much more interesting, pedestrian-friendly, connection between the two streets. And I hope that's maintained if this project goes forward.
Very good. I'm going to give Sage the last word. The other design review members, we've all heard comments, and hopefully we can take that to them, and we will definitely encourage that they bring this back to this body with significant revisions once they've made them and once design review has gone through. Sage, you're up.
Sure. I just wanted to remind us, so I think our parking committee and did that, parking walking study, and we found that this particular street front had like so many street cuts that there could have been a lot more street parking. What happened here? I know with the previous application, there was on-street parking increased. What's the situation now? Was that mentioned? Because I can't tell from the one little sketch up.
I'm not sure what you're asking. You're asking if on-street parking is maintained or added?
Currently, there is not on-street parking in front of it because it's the entrances to those parking lots. So when this building goes up, will it create new on-street parking?
Oh, it certainly could create the potential for that, yes, because those driveway cuts will go away.
Right. Well, and before it was part of their package. So I'm just curious if that's going to be touched on.
Yeah, well, as you saw, I didn't have a full site plan, so I wasn't, I think that's, I don't know why they wouldn't do it as part of this application.
Sure. Well, and if this body is now not reviewing design, but is reviewing impacts, that would be an impact.
Right.
We want to be able to make sure that there's a chance for the increased parking if possible.
That's a good note. Shannon, do you need anything else from us to take to DRC or to the applicant?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm good.
Perfect. All right, then let's move into our next item of business, which was a discussion of initial proposal for board restructures. There been some materials that went out. So Ruth and I were invited to a design forum. Let me get my time right. I think that was last Wednesday. Is that right? Yeah. And the city council, I think through Vice Chair Gwen, and I think staff have been have worked on an initial proposal to restructure boards and commissions. There was a small article in LOS, and there's some material that is available with that. So I wanted to go ahead. Well, I wanted to talk about it. I know Andrew wanted to talk about it. There's probably some others that wanted to talk about it a little bit today. And Dana, if you don't mind, I'm going to let you kind of jump in since you've been involved in that process. Describe kind of what the purpose is and where the process stands and what are the next steps, and then we can talk about it just a little bit.
Sure, happy to frame this up a bit. So I'm just going to start with the process side. There is an initial proposal that we do expect to change and evolve based on feedback and potentially after implementing a pilot program. There's been 2 focus group meetings held last week, as Brian mentioned, and staff is still going through the various comments and feedback and questions that were made at those meetings. The next step of engagement will be some larger public workshops, which all board members in the community will be invited to, and we should have those dates. They're trying to set them later today, so hopefully early next week. Also happy, it is tough for staff to get to each individual board. We really haven't laid out the entire process of engagement yet, but if that's something that's important to this board, we can absolutely try to make that happen. So just looking at the reason that this proposal is being explored, staff and council and board members have seen challenges with filling board seats and keeping board seats filled, staff capacity to manage boards, unclear roles and responsibilities for board members, communication among and across boards, as well as from board members to city council. There's inconsistency with that. Communication from board members to the larger community, some challenges there, or some gaps there. And over time, as boards change and their priorities evolve, in some cases, those kind of separate from council's priorities and from the goals, the larger city goals that we're working towards. So staff researched other cities and best practices, and that really informed this early proposal. The proposal aims to structure boards and commissions in a way where they would be directly aligned with goals of the comprehensive plan. And the proposal was written to be intentional about about being more inclusive, strategic, and efficient. Even though I recognize, if you're collapsing boards, it can feel like you're including less people. But I just will share that goals of this restructure are to be more inclusive, strategic, and efficient. And so yes, the advisory boards would be decision and action oriented, kind of like how a council committee operates or council meetings currently. And working groups would be, is kind of a flexible approach of engaging with various folks in the community who have interest on particular topics and working on, focusing for a period of time or on an ad hoc basis to tackle a particular thing. And that's still very much, an open conversation about how working groups would be structured to support those boards and commissions and ultimately, making progress on these important issues and items that we're trying to tackle as a city. So I do also there's an email address that folks are welcome to use if you have early comments or feedback or questions. Again, it's a little hard. I understand why some of you here, this might be the first time you're hearing this. So there's definitely more, the presentation that was given at these focus groups is available, and there's plenty more information, that will come, but I know there's a lot of interest in this. And so just wanted to provide, frame things up a little bit on where we are.
Okay. So my understanding, there is that forum was to inform current chair and vice chair positions of kind of where they currently are, and then the goal is to move on into an actual process. What was proposed or what was presented, and again, like Dana said, we can make that PDF available. Is that they would take? There's currently, I think, 6 city council committees. They would take that down to 5. There would then be 4 advisory boards, and then under each advisory board would be a working group. The working groups would be have a beginning and an end, and then there would also be one of the components to this was to create a database of community individuals with skills and abilities, and they would pull from that database into the working groups. There's a lot of questions. At least I have a ton of questions. I would go ahead and frame it this way: that I know that pruning can be a good and healthy activity, but you have to understand what is working and what is not, what is healthy and what is not before you prune. And that we need to have clear metrics for what are currently functional, good relationships and what are not before we start cutting things. So I would say I'm open to the idea that we need to have this process. I have concerns on who, how we're going to make these decisions and what they are. So I don't want to belabor this too long. There's going to be lots of hands. I know we have other things we need to do. So let's jump in and please ask your questions. We'll try to answer them. And really what we're doing today, at least my goal for today, I see you, Andrew. My goal for today is to inform you on what's going on and get some feedback so we can communicate that back to folks and go from there. Gio.
I just want to make a comment. For years now, having been involved in so many commissions, I looked at the amount of staff time it takes to handle these commissions, to just be in person. And I really think this process is necessary because I don't think I've been involved in a city that has quite so many commissions on quite so many topics. And I like the idea of doing task force as opposed to just sitting 3-hour meetings and just listening to everyone's. So I applaud the effort. I hope it works. I hope we can that staff can use its time much more effectively with task force and those kinds of that process. So good for you.
Sage, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just share, as just kind of watching the process, I'm still very much leaning in and listening to everyone. But what I have heard in all my years on all these different boards is that there's frustration from the members of the boards as well about, I mean, this board's actually really active and has been, maybe feels more impactful because you review designs and you're creating policy and stuff. But there are other boards that just feel like they're talking into the wind and that council doesn't hear them, and there's this dysfunction in the connectivity and the overlap of some. So, I don't know where I sit on this proposal. I suspect by the time it gets to us, that we'll have a lot of changes. But what I am doing, I am supportive of hearing from everyone about how it could be better. And maybe this isn't the right way, or there's better ways, or it'll get more expansive as we shop it. But I do hope that y'all will engage and encourage others to, so we can improve this process overall.
Okay, Andrew, launch.
Yeah, I fully agree that boards and commissions require renovation, but make no doubt about it, the process that has brought us this proposal is not been a community-led process. It's been clear that it's been a council-led process. It's hard for me to imagine the massive amount of staff time at the management level that went into creating a 31-page PowerPoint presentation without some sense that there was a majority of council that sanctioned the use of that time, because there's a lot of staff resources that went into this plan. Also, this is a closed-end project. They've already suggested where the landing point is, and now the idea that we can somehow get some input onto this, I think it looks like processes the city has failed in, but previously. It does not look like processes that the city has been successful in. And I'm going to point to our work on the Haywood page. And if you applied this process to what happened at Haywood page, we would have started with a pretty fully drawn map. And what made that project successful is we let the community lead. We brought experts into the room, plenty of blank pieces of paper, and we took the time to listen. The elastic in this plan is almost nil as it's proposed right now. And that is my deep concern. If you did an actual SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which is what businesses and project planners do, but you did that after deciding the landing point, then you haven't really done a very good process. So this is not a community-led process. I'm deeply, and I don't think that the process that has been started right now is going to get us to a better place. I think that the best way to do that is to tell council to reboot this. Do not define the landing point, which has been defined in the proposal. And the fact that the landing point has been defined already sort of makes asking us now and opening this community input a false effort. And I've seen it before. And what I suspect will happen is that after a couple more focus group meetings, a couple more input sessions, the hands are going to be thrown up and say, oh, well, it's too late. We can't ask the big picture questions. How do we know that less is more? How do we know that more is worse? We haven't been asking the correct questions before we started this process. And the community has sort of been blindsided by this proposal to basically evict 200 people from their positions in City Hall. That's about the number if you look at who's there and who would be afterwards. And I think we need to help the city. They're making a mistake right now in this process. And I'm ready to help, but I can't help this thing because it's non-salvageable. And if we're going to really talk about what we need to do, we cannot define the landing point before we even start listening to community members and stakeholders and things like that. So I have some serious process questions, and I don't think the process as launched right now is salvageable. because there's no real buy-in. There's recognition. I hear you, Gil. There's recognition of the need for work. But I'll tell you, in my years of experience with boards and commissions, the biggest determinants of success is whether your council liaison pays attention to what's going on and shows up to meetings, and whether you have a dedicated staff member attached to that. So in Public Art and Cultural Commission, we've limped along because we've shared a staff person that is stretched very, very thin. And our council liaison has attended one meeting in the entire time I've been there, and that's been almost 6 years. And so the idea that the boards and commissions are struggling because of some intrinsic nature of them is false. They're struggling when the city doesn't apply the correct maintenance, the correct resources to those. If it's kind of funny to blame the boards themselves when the boards don't get to choose the resources that they have available to them. If we want to empower these citizens to do things, we can't ignore them and then ask why they've been ignored. So I'm willing to hear from some other folks on this, but I am very concerned that if we let this ball roll any farther, then it's going to be a foregone conclusion, and we need to help the city and ask them to fully reboot this process. And after I hear from some folks, if I think that we've got support, I have a motion prepared.
Robin, go ahead.
I apologize if I've missed something, but I haven't seen a PowerPoint or I haven't read this long PDF, so it's kind of hard to have any comments about this at all from my perspective. I mean, I don't know what.
Yeah. So I mean, I was at the meeting, and I'm not even sure we wanted to go ahead and get in front of it and start talking about it because it's generating a huge amount of buzz. We'll send that out, Tal. We'll try to put a link or something in chat. I'll figure out how to do that in a minute. But no, you haven't missed anything. It kind of just came out, and we're informing you that this process is happening because this would be huge. I had tons of questions. Originally, I misunderstood the proposal because it looked like they had, quasi-judicial and joint boards and commissions kind of in that mix, but I think they were just showing how stretched resources are. But it's really just advisory boards, which would include this one, that are on the table. Before we get to Kimmy and Gio and Sage again, I want to point out one thing that I think is interesting. We just praised the city's the way the city is handling the reimagining of our center, and how they're going. We're going to hire a project manager, and we're going to listen to the community, and we're not even going to tell you what the end point is until we've listened to people and figured out what we're supposed to be doing. And that's just, it's a big deal, but that's just for a piece of the city, whereas this is a policy for how policy will happen, right? So I want to point that out. Kimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm on this commission and other volunteer committees and boards and things like that because I care about the wellness of our community. It's so important to me. You're so important to me, everyone on this commission, and my neighbors are so important to me, and those I've met and haven't met. And that if there's any little thing I can do to make people who can't because they're not, they're working or they're strapped down with more children or whatever, or they're incapable of speaking up, that my little voice that's not professional and not this and not that actually offers insight. I think for me, all I know in life is that I don't know anything. That's all I know. And that I'm learning every day, and that I get a lot of things wrong. And sometimes I hit the mark and I get some things right. My heart's desire, and I'm speaking from the heart here because it's just who I am. I'm a technician about some things, but mostly hard about everything else, is that the wellness of every person here and beyond, and who will come and who's been here and has been overlooked and they do not receive wellness from living in the city and in our county. That whatever decisions any body makes, council, city staff, boards, commissions, that it is really with the aim of wellness. And we have been tattered and torn and ripped and shredded. Many people, maybe even some of you here, the last couple of years with this and that and COVID and this and that and the other. And if when we emerge, it means that things have shifted because it leads to more wellness. It leads to the ability for people to have more longevity. It leads to greater visibility of all people. Then let's do that. Maybe we don't agree about how to get there in this moment because change is scary. But I want to offer that in these times when maybe each of us has a personal agenda, maybe we don't. I know for me, I'm just here because I care. That's it. A career agenda, a political agenda, whatever it is. I'm not naming anything specific about any one person. But if it could be, just hold each of us at the center as if we freaking matter. If our time, our energy, our resources, our ability to be with our friends and family, because people are dying. People are here one day and gone the next. We had a wonderful citizen who died unexpectedly within the last 6 months, who would come to all of our meetings. He was there every single session. He's gone. He contributed so much to our community. I just want us to think, I'm going to cry, but I want us to be about wellness. Sometimes the job is too tough. Sometimes the resources are too thin. Are we emerging from this pandemic with more care for each other or more rules and policies that separate us? And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimmy. Gio, go ahead.
Resources are too thin. Andrew made a point, and I think he kind of helped me understand what I was saying. That when I started out with the Public Arts and Cultural Commission, and there's usually like one meeting where the city council representative will show up and then not be there. And I've seen the resources, the ability for the Public Arts and Cultural Commission diminish because there's simply not enough staff resources. And I think this applies pretty much throughout the commissions that I've been working. So I just wanted to say that you've kind of made an argument for what I was thinking. I think this is restructuring is important. It's important to be able to have an input, and there is a lot of frustration that a lot of these commissions and that have particular interests, their interests are not being met. And I think a lot of it is because they're stretched too thin. And I really do agree that this restructuring is important, so that the interests that people put a lot of interest in effort in are not being met. So I think that we need to we need this restructuring, and we need to put our resources where they matter and they count. That's all I want to say.
Sage.
I'll just be quick and thank y'all for your input, because I really hope we don't, as a commission, shut this down before it has time to even be heard. I mean, some of you have never even heard it. I think only 2 of you have seen a PowerPoint. I mean, this is a real starting place. It's not and I'm not sure what Mr. Fletcher was calling it. I forgot the word, but it's not already written. I mean, you got to start somewhere. It can't be a blank piece of paper. So I appreciate y'all continuing to lean into this and work on it and how it can be better and making suggestions along the way. I mean, that's really all I'm seeking as a counselor that has to weigh on this. You know, I love this commission. I've loved all the boards I'm on, and change is hard. But I know I'm keeping an open mind until I hear from everyone about how it looks and how it feels and what it could be. So I hope that you all don't try and recommend that we stop before we actually hear from citizens.
Okay. Go ahead, Andrew.
To be clear, I'm requesting that we stop and listen to citizens. with the endpoint is what, and I don't know, for if you haven't looked at the PowerPoint, I mean, I promise I'm not lying to you about it. The endpoint is defined, and asking us what we think of it rather than asking for like a real analysis of our situation and where we can go, is actually not the kind of process that I think is going to be successful. Like maybe we wind up exactly where we are right now, but the process that got it here is not going to, we're not going to get community buy-in if we do it this way. Without community buy-in, we're not going to get trust. We're not satisfying our comprehensive plan. One of the metrics of our comprehensive plan is a more inclusive community engagement process that includes a greater number of underrepresented citizens involved in planning processes. How are we going to do that? We're not going to get there with this plan, and I'm deeply skeptical that a council-driven process is going to be superior for the community than a community-driven process. And so if we're going to get there, we're going to get there together. And this is not a together plan.
We need to keep moving. So one way or another, I wanted to have this discussion. I wanted to give an impact. I don't know what motion I would be comfortable making. Especially since most of you haven't even seen the PowerPoint or anything like that at this point in time. I want to present it to you, wanted to give staff a chance to kind of frame it a little bit, answer any questions you might have. Dana said she will put links to the PowerPoint. And I think, Dana, could you also put that FAQ? There's a frequently asked questions thing in there. If you put both of those into the report so that everybody can see what's going on. And then you can kind of decide what to do from there. And Dana, I wasn't clear when we left that meeting what the city's proposing for next steps and what the timeline was. I didn't have a clear sense of where we are and how quickly this is happening or not happening. Can you?
Well, I think there was a lot of good discussion at those meetings, and so staff is working on sorting through all of that. And I hope, and I just talked with the city clerk's office this morning, that by early next week, we'll have a clear schedule laid out of next steps for engagement. So we should have that really soon. I've already added a link to the PowerPoint in the downtown update report, and I'll add a link to the FAQ as well, and appreciate the discussion today.
Okay. Can we move on to the next? Anybody have any other comments or questions, or can we move on to our next item?
I also just got word there's a project page, so I'll include a link to that as well.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Our next item of business is officer elections. And I don't know who runs that. Is that me? Stephen Lee. Wonderful. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Chair Moffitt. So the nominating committee consisted of myself and Ruth Summers. Chairman Moffitt, the nominating committee submits the following nominations for chair and vice chair. For chair, there is one nomination presently, and that is Brian Moffitt, our current acting chair. For vice chair, there are two nominations, and we're lucky there are two very well qualified nominations, and we're grateful. Andrew Fletcher and Gio Rodriguez. We all know Brian very well. Andrew and Gio, there are two on the nominations right now. I thought it would be good if maybe you each spend a moment and just said a word about your ability to serve in this capacity. Andrew, do you mind going first?
Oh, Gio, old friend, you recruited me for Public Art and Cultural Commission years ago. I appreciate that. I didn't know you were a fellow nominee. I have actually served as vice chair before. I was a vice chair for a year and served as the interim chair after Sage was elected to city council. And so I can run a meeting. I can make sure that the work of the committee is done. I've been involved in some of the most difficult conversations the city has had in a leadership role, directing conversations with the Haywood Page Task Force. Many of you saw me work there. And that skill set that I brought to those conversations will I think, be very helpful in a reserve capacity under Chair Moffitt. And I am happy to bring a non-design perspective. We've got a strong design perspective on the council, and I am happy to bring a non-design perspective to council and in a broad view of what the community is talking about outside of the design world, because I think that is a very important input to a group like ours that has a broad and geographic focus rather than a topical focus. And so that is what I bring to the table, and I'd appreciate all of your support.
Thank you, Andrew. Gio?
To those of you, I don't need to bring up, a lot of you have worked with me in the past, but for those of you who don't know me, I started out my work in the city of Asheville as a Public Art and Culture Commission. I became chair of that. I was chair of the Asheville Downtown Design Center when Haywood Page was there. I have worked on, I've been a commissioner on the Urban Forestry Commission. I served 2 terms on the Asheville Zoning and Planning Commission. I'm currently on Downtown Commission. I was just been appointed to the board of the of Asheville Greenworks. I have a long established relationship, and I've been able to work with committees, and so in terms of being able to just professionally run this and serve as a vice chair, I think I'm very qualified. I have a great respect for Andrew. One of the reasons I brought him, I asked him to serve on the Public Arts and Culture Commission is because he brought a unique voice. So I am honored to serve if elected, and I'm very capable of serving if elected. And if not, I think we're in capable hands with Andrew. So please don't take this as a, I am very capable of serving in both capacities and happy to work with both of you.
Thank you, Gio. So I'm going to turn this back over to Chair Moffitt to see if we have any nominations from the floor. Chair Moffitt.
Sure. So are there any other nominations? Anyone would like to nominate anyone else? And I believe we allow self-nominations if I recall our rules correctly. Going once, going twice. Okay, the slate is set. Kimmy.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm not nominating myself and not interested, but I will also say, I will also note that I do feel like for people who come here in the future, as I have often felt over the years, that the design professionals in this group talk down to people who are not a design professional. So no matter who the chair or the vice chair is moving forward, it would be awesome if you wouldn't talk down to people who give just as much time as you do on this committee.
Thank you, Kimmy. All right, Stephen Lee, what's next? Do I run the vote?
I'd like to make a motion that we close the nominating process and we take a vote.
Okay. I can't quite recall how we voted last time. Did we just raise hands?
I can't remember.
Roll call vote.
Roll call.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. We'll do a roll call vote for Andrew first. Sound fair, everybody? Okay. For Andrew Fletcher, please indicate by saying aye. Robin, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think we roll called and then said who we were voting for.
That's even
Is that right?
faster. That's
Yeah,
even
that's
faster,
faster. That's
and I
faster.
like it. All right. Okay. All right. We'll do a roll call vote. Andrew.
I vote for Fletcher.
All right. Tal.
Andrew?
All right. Kimmy.
Rodriguez.
Okay. Stephen Lee.
Rodriguez.
Okay. Me. I'm going to vote for Andrew. Robin.
Andrew.
Megan.
Andrew. That's hard.
Yeah, this is tough. Gio.
I'm going to vote for Andrew.
Ricardo.
Well, I was going to vote for Gio, but that just made it weird. I'm sticking with Gio.
Okay. All right. Ruth.
Andrew Fletcher.
All right. And Sage.
Gio Rodriguez.
All right. I got 7-4. What'd you get, Stephen Lee? Yep. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. Andrew Fletcher will be the new vice chair.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you both.
Gio,
mostly to Gio.
Gio, I should mostly to Gio. Yeah, I should have called you this week, Gio. That was awkward, my friend.
I have the greatest respect for you, Andrew, and so great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Kimmy had to leave the meeting. Megan, go ahead.
I'm just curious, do we actually, even though you're the only nominee, do we actually need to vote?
Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe just
Yeah. Were there any nominations on the? We should do that. The nominations on the floor for chair as well. So, are there any nominations on the floor for chair? Please.
You're doing too good of a job, Brian.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Clearly not. Okay. Do we need to vote? I don't know, Megan. If there's a Dana.
I think we should vote.
Oh crap. Okay, fine. We'll just do. Do you accept the one choice you have, Andrew?
Moffitt.
Okay. Tal.
Yes.
All right. Kimmy had to leave. Stephen Lee.
Yes, Moffitt.
Okay. Me. Sure. Robin.
Yes.
Megan.
Aye.
Gio.
Aye.
Ricardo.
Aye. You just wanted to make it unanimous, didn't you?
No, not really. Ruth. I should have voted against. Ruth.
Moffitt.
And Sage.
Moffitt. And I want to thank you, Brian, and all of you for continuing to volunteer your time. But for those of you who have to chair and vice chair, it's a little extra work, and I just really appreciate it.
Of course. Happy to help. That's really what I want to do, is just be helpful, make sure everybody's getting heard. And with that, we will move into updates and reports. And folks, we're coming up on our quitting time. I appreciate you sticking with us. If you can stick with us for about 10 more minutes or so, I think we can wrap up. Stephen Lee, Design Review Committee update.
Thank you. I'll make this brief, Chairman Moffitt. There were 4 projects that the review committee reviewed on January 20th. I think all of them have been before this group. I may stand corrected on that, but 48 South Market downtown, which is a reuse and renovation of a historic building. It received a favorable recommendation from the committee. 123 Haywood Street, you've seen that as well. It was another level 1 review. It had been back for several adjustments and it received a favorable review. The Avery apartment project that you've seen at 363 Hilliard. I think we saw that 3 times, and there was a lot of work that went into that one, a lot of work. And in the end, a favorable recommendation was sent to Planning and Zoning, and Planning and Zoning approved it. Well, I stand corrected on that. Not officially at the meeting. A favorable recommendation was not, but in the end, I'm just going to say this, in the end, Planning and Zoning approved it. The developer continued to work up until the P&Z meeting on specific items, and I think they achieved the primary goals we were looking for. I had to leave. The meeting went late, so if Chair Moffitt or Robin could mention what the result was of the review of the pergolas in front of the Eris Hotel that you've all seen at the last meeting. If y'all could share what the results were in that discussion.
That was an informal review, if I recall, or a preliminary or whatever we call it. And we gave them feedback that the proposed design was too permanent of a fixture to not be in congruence, to use a term of art, with the existing building or with that use, and that they basically needed to go back to the drawing board a bit and come up with something that was either much lighter and less permanent, or more in congruence with the building. Robin, am I characterizing that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
All right. The last thing was that I think this is available easily online, but there's a draft report that was sent to City Council, for being prepared for City Council, that just reviewed what the DRC participated in 2021. And that's the end of the report.
Very good. Thank you. Megan, Asheville Downtown Association. Thank you.
So I have quite a bit. I'll try to be brief. All of this can be found on our website at ashevilledowntown.org. We have our issues survey out for businesses right now. This one is focused on businesses in downtown. We do hope, as we move forward with the project that I told you about last month, highlighting the importance of downtown, that we can do a resident survey working with some partner organizations, and also a city resident sentiment survey. So this one right now focused on businesses, those of you that have businesses in downtown. Also your employees, folks that, I think it can get a different perspective from people who work downtown rather than the business owner. So that's important as well. The results of that will be shared at our State of Downtown Luncheon, which is March 8th. Hopefully you all can attend. We are going back to a limited in-person event, and then I'm working on whether we'll record or live stream that. It also features presentations from the mayor and Buncombe County Commission Chair Brownie Newman on their work and initiatives and priorities for downtown in 2022. We recently learned last week, I think it was, that a permanent public restroom facility has not been prioritized amongst the ARPA funding proposals. This is pretty disappointing to hear, and it's almost something I hear from all different types of business owners, homeless resource providers, residents, all alike, the issues that we're having with the 29 Haywood Street restrooms being closed. So I would encourage all of you to voice your support for a permanent public restroom, 24-hour public restroom facility in downtown directly to council, and please encourage others to do so. I would even encourage us as a commission to provide that support for public restroom facilities. That's a big challenge in downtown, and is causing a lot of issues for folks. And then lastly, we put out our Wristband partner applications this week as well. This is for our big events. The nonprofit provides volunteers to sell wristbands, and we provide them with a donation of $2,000. So please share that with any nonprofits. And lastly, our food vendor application is also out. So if you know anyone that would be interested in vending at our events, they can find that information on our website. Sounds like Sage may have an update on restrooms.
Not an update yet.
Okay.
I appreciate you bringing it up. And I'm fighting hard for a restroom. I don't think we're going to get two. And I'm fighting hard for this. And listen, if you all, as a downtown commission, would like to make a motion to support the need for an outdoor 24/7 Portland Loo in downtown, I would love that. After this meeting, so you all know, I summarize what has happened. I point out any issues that came up. I'll talk about boards and commissions, and I will send a summary email to council. And I would love at the end for it to say, They also recommended we have this bathroom. So go ahead, do it.
I would make a motion to recommend we have an outdoor restroom 24/7 in
Second.
downtown Asheville.
Second.
All right, let's go through. Andrew,
Aye.
Tal,
Aye.
Stephen Lee,
Aye.
myself, I, Robin,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
Gio.
Aye.
Ricardo,
Aye.
Ruth.
Aye.
Sage can't vote because it's a policy thing, right? I think.
I
can't
can vote.
remember. Yeah, you can
Oh, we're
vote on
voting
this
on the
one.
recommendation
Yeah,
of the
go
board.
ahead.
Yep, aye.
Aye. All right, the ayes have it. That's unanimous.
Aye.
Go.
Thank you.
Well done. All right. Megan, were you done? I'm sorry. Okay. Public Space Management Committee update, and then downtown update report. Dana.
Thank you. Public Space Management Committee. We had really hoped, Andrew had really encouraged us to try to get a meeting done before today, which we have not been able to do, but we have made progress on getting folks to apply to participate on that committee. So we have 13 applications at this point. We're missing just a few slots. We need someone that participated in the AVL Share Space program, a business owner, ideally someone that had a parklet. We need a P&Z rep. We had some interest, but that person hasn't submitted their form yet, so I need to follow up. Urban Forestry Commission rep and an accessibility expert or advocate or someone with particular perspective on accessibility issues and needs. So I'm going to work really hard today to try to get those slots filled, and I hope that early next week I'll be sending out a doodle poll for scheduling. So I hope that that committee can meet in the next, 2 weeks or so. That's what I'm shooting for. So that's the update there. Does anyone have questions about that before I move on? Okay. Downtown update report. I'll pull this up so you know what links are in there. Okay. Want to make sure everyone's aware that we did submit the Downtown Commission's annual report, and thanks everyone for your work on that. We kind of massaged some of the language that had been discussed at the last meeting, but we did send that out in advance. We didn't hear any further feedback from anyone, so you can find that final copy of the annual report, and that does go to City Council in advance of their retreat coming up in March. Homeless initiatives. So there were some questions by email between last meeting and this meeting. I've gone ahead and compiled the questions and answers to those questions in a PDF document here. I don't know if we want to look at that. I think I'll start with just letting you all know that that is available at this point. I do encourage you to read all of it. I know there's a lot of interest in that topic. Tal?
Yeah, thank you for compiling all these answers. And I just wanted to jump in since I am new here. But when I announced kind of like publicly that I'm joining this commission, the one thing I got with many requests and many people reached out is about the issue with homelessness downtown. This is a big problem, and while pergolas are super important too, our safety downtown and walking downtown and me walking with my kids downtown, that is, it's not, we don't feel safe there at this point. So I think the city needs to do more about it. Looking at kind of like the available material out there, it looks like the problem is increased since the 5-year plan. So we might have increased, that there are probably some good that was done out there around the wellness of the population, but what about what are we doing to reduce homelessness downtown? What are our goals for this year and for the next 5 years? Right now, there are none, right? Because the 5-year plan is over. We don't have a new 5-year plan at this point, and I have yet to see an actual objectives and measures for reducing kind of like homelessness downtown. So key important for me and for everyone that reached out to me. So I'll keep bringing it up. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have a quick discussion, Dana, and then we'll jump back in. Ruth, and then Gio, Sage, and Andrew. Ruth first.
Yeah, I just was in a meeting earlier this week, and I found out, that Dogwood Trust is going to be paying for a consultant to come in and work with the city and Buncombe County on homeless issues. Dogwood Trust has realized this is a main problem. They're really looking at providing more low-income housing in the next few years. Last year they helped create 1,150 new housing units, but they will be paying to have this consultant come in, and it's not going to be a one-day person that comes in just for a day. They're going to be here for quite a few days or as long as it takes to come up with some solutions, and they will be an expert in this issue. So just wanted to let people know that.
Thank you, Gio.
Some of you have seen me downtown in my new capacity. I'm working as a security staff for Access, and I have the comments. They don't know that I'm part of the downtown commission or anything like that, but I have had so many visitors comment on their feeling of the safety, their perception that downtown is no longer safe because of the homeless. That has happened in the last maybe 5 or 6 years. As long as I've been associated with downtown, I've never really heard that until recently. And that is shocking to me, because to me, downtown is not unsafe. But now I'm hearing through a different lens as sort of an ambassador in a way of people visiting. And I share that concern. I'm beginning to change my views, and I'm listening. So I just wanted to put it out there that people visiting downtown from out of the city do not feel safe. Whether it's the perception or the reality, perception is reality. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Gio. Sage.
Yeah, I was going to share along the lines with Ruth. So the county, the city, and Dogwood are kind of, we're kind of entering into this arrangement and partnership to figure out, to Tal's point, what's the whole picture and what's the whole plan. And, we've learned, I've done a deep dive into the unhoused community, our resources, organizations, et cetera, for the last few months. I've learned as much as I can. There's so much to learn. There are so many partners and organizations and volunteers and incredible people out there. But there is, similar to our boards and commissions discussion, they're working in silos. There should be overlap. They need each other. They're not interacting. There's a whole, we need a coming together and a large picture and a long-term view. And that is what Dogwood is funding for us to do, to take on this grander perspective and really look at the needs of people. Because we say it's a problem with homelessness. It is not a problem with the homeless. Right? The people are not the problem. The way that we have allowed this problem to exist is more of the infrastructure and cultural problem that we need to repair. A lot of times people need help. We've seen an influx of different kinds of drugs in our community. I'm hearing more and more and more about meth, and I had to learn about meth. I didn't even know what meth is, but it's creating a different environment. We have new needs. We've got opioid crisis money coming into the community. There's a lot going on. And I don't think we're going to be able to really solve it until we figure out all the pieces. So I'm looking forward to learning more to do better. And Gio, that's a really interesting perspective you just shared. I may call you afterwards to talk about it, because I'm hearing from a lot of downtown businesses, organizations, and even visitors email me about concerns that are similar. And it's hard to understand if it's perception or reality. And I'm really concerned. I'm concerned about our downtown. So if you have concerns individually, you can also reach out to me.
Andrew, and then we're going to move on. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that if we're considering the feelings of tourists and about safety first, rather than the actual safety of people experiencing homeless, then we're doing it all backwards. Though I realize that maybe when it affects tourists, then we'll take it seriously, which is kind of disappointing to me. When it comes down to it, my bank account has more in common with the homeless than the tourists. So I've been closer to homelessness than weekend vacations and in destinations, elsewhere like Asheville. So I kind of feel a little differently about this. And I also work downtown and see these things too. There's actually no mystery about what solves homelessness, and that's housing. There's this fantastic article, which I'm going to paste in the chat for everyone. And for everyone watching at home, if you look at New York Times and Google Stephen Banks, it's a fantastic resource about the experience of New York and homelessness. And there's this great quote in here, and they said, well, what does it take to comply with the court orders that to shelter folks? He says, well, you need services to prevent homelessness, you need decent, adequate shelter for people who need it, and you need a way to provide permanent housing. The police are not on that list. And I'm really disappointed to see that the city's tool for dealing with homelessness again and again seems to be shuffling the locations of homelessness and not changing the conditions that are leading to homelessness, that are keeping people homeless and are preventing people from entering permanent housing. There's more we can do. It's not a mystery about how to solve homelessness. And I guarantee you that if the people experiencing homelessness were made safe, then all the tourists would feel safe too. And so we have to do this. We have to be a solution forward, not Band-Aids with badges and guns.
I hope you all will read this document that Dana has shared. It will highlight all of the many, many things we're doing.
Yeah, there's a ton of information on this. This has been a topic for the last several council meetings. There's been a couple presentations to council on this. So it's not a new topic. Tal, go ahead, and then we really need to move on.
I am not a tourist in this town, and I don't feel safe. So what my ask is that we put the town and the citizens of this town and consider them as well and their wellness as well. So I'm not a tourist, so I'd like to be taken into consideration.
Very good. Dana, the remainder of the downtown update.
And first, I'm going to make a recommendation to consider. And that is, we've pointed out that there's other advisory bodies that focus on homelessness. There's the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee. There's the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. But these issues very clearly are relevant to downtown and the unique environment that downtown is. And so I recognize Downtown Commission probably will continue to have a lot of interest. And I wonder if there's someone on the Downtown Commission. So part of what you all are charged with doing is coordinating with these other advisory bodies directly. And I wonder if there's someone who might volunteer to be kind of like a liaison or point person for issues related to homelessness, who could tune in to these other advisory meetings, keep up with relevant discussions city council's having, and try to report back and open up discussions as relevant for the commission to weigh in on. But I think it's important that we aren't just feeding you like through your own path this information that's happening. I think it's really important that the Downtown Commission stays plugged in where a lot of this work is actually being done. So not that you all have to know today if that's something you want to do or who that might be, but I just wanted to offer that suggestion.
Go ahead, Robin.
I'd be happy to do that if that's something that people want somebody on this commission to do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think so. I think this is something that obviously downtown policies, procedures, recommendations to council. I mean, it goes into a lot of different things, and it's a multivariate. This is a millennia-old problem. It's not a new problem. it's something that takes a lot of. And I'd like to put out a couple of things. One, a lot of our tourists are citizens. They're very nearby tourists, and a lot of the homeless folks are citizens. So this is not one of those either or, them and us kind of thing. And sometimes law enforcement does have to get involved. So yeah, there's a lot of components to this, and some coordination would be good. So thank you, Robin, Megan, and then Gio, and then we really need to move on because I'm monopolizing your mornings.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, Robin, I'm willing to tag team that with you if you want to maybe connect next week. We can figure out how to do that.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Yay, Robin and Megan. Gio.
I just wanted to make a quick comment that my comments about what I've been hearing isn't just tourists. In fact, I would say it's my coworkers who live in Asheville, who live in the area, and even employees of the Civic Center. These are local people who are not feeling safe in the street. I just wanted to bring that up. It's not just the people from outside.
I second that. I'm hearing it from the workforce. I'm hearing employers tag teaming workers to get to their cars. I mean, there's something, whether it's perception or reality, there's something amiss that hasn't always been there.
Agreed. Okay. Thank you, Dana, and thank you, everyone, for having that discussion and for your willingness to jump in and be a part of the solution. Thank you.
Great. And just another thank you. And Megan and Robin, feel free, between Councilwoman Turner and I, we can help direct you to some of these areas and groups to keep up with. Thank you. Pack Square Plaza improvements. I think we heard enough about that earlier, but just want to make sure you guys are aware there is a project page. On that project page, you can find another link to the bid opportunity for the project manager and a good amount of background information too for Pack Square. The ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funding process. So Sage knows 70 or so proposals came in through the call for proposals that the city did. Applicants had an opportunity last week to provide 2-minute presentations during a city council work session. That project page was just updated earlier this week. So I just want to let you all know that the presentation at the work sessions is available, and the list of all projects submitted and links to those actual applications is now available. And there's a kind of Q&A process happening at this point, and council is scheduled to vote on the funding allocations in March or April. Wanted to let you guys know there are some updates just released in the last couple weeks on priorities for the Office of Data and Performance. Sorry for not spelling out that acronym, but wanted to direct you to more information on that. And also they're doing a quarterly newsletter to provide updates on the work they're doing. And so I thought that might be something interesting that you guys might want to tap into. Development projects, I believe we already discussed this with Design Review Committee updates. The Star Building is scheduled to go to the Design Review Committee next week. Those agendas get posted really early, so props to whichever staff person, Shannon or Will, that's getting that done. But you can take a look at the agenda for those upcoming Design Review Committee meetings. And upcoming council, next meeting scheduled for February 22nd. It will be in person as far as I understand. 363 Hilliard is scheduled to go to City Council for review, as is 343, 357 West Haywood Street, and we can. You all have looked at 363 Hilliard. You didn't review the West Haywood project, but it's pretty close to downtown, so just flagging that for you. Indoor face covering requirements, the County Commission is scheduled to consider whether that mandate will continue at their meeting on Tuesday. So the current order does expire on Wednesday of next week. And board restructure proposal. So I put a number of links here. We have the presentation that was provided to the focus groups, have an FAQ document, and a project page that probably has all of this, and an email address where you can direct questions, ideas, or concerns. I will stop sharing and happy to answer any questions.
I love your reports, Dina. Thank you for all this information and work.
Very much so. I don't see anybody. They've been pretty free with their hands. So if they had a, oh, there we go, Ruth.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if you work in an office with other people, if they would send a letter or an email to City Council about the 24/7 restrooms, I think it would be helpful. So just wanted to remind people of that.
Thank you. Future agenda items, we will have Parks is coming to update us in March, I think, to talk about some of their understanding and plans and priorities. Southside vision plan potentially in March if we can get everything arranged. And we will keep talking about, especially now that Robin and Megan are going to kind of be looking at what's going on with different initiatives. We will try to stay up to date on that and add items to the agenda as necessary. And we're going to keep our eye on this boards and commissioning restructure piece. So that's what I know about that. Any other items that we need to cover, or do we have a motion to adjourn? That's the carrot, by the way.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. All in favor, wave goodbye and log off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great
Thank
Friday.
you, everyone.
Cheers.